Hi, Antra. Thank you so much for joining our University of Chicago Women in Leadership interviews. We're happy to have you here. And tell us, when did you graduate from University of Chicago and from what school?
Okay, it's really nice to be here. My name is Antra Bhatt. I graduated from the University of Chicago with a master's in public policy from the Harris School in 2017. Right now, I'm working as a statistics specialist in UN Women's Research and Data section. UN Women is the entity within the UN system which is responsible and has the mandate for achieving gender equality and also working towards the economic empowerment of women and girls. So that's a brief introduction.
Before we turn to your work a little bit more, tell us about a distinct memory you have from the University of Chicago.
Let me see, there are many, so let me try to pick one. I think I would say that it's from the time when I had a chance to work with the city of Gary, Indiana, on a project that was for a particular course called Policy Labs. The speciality of that course was that you could work with students from all across UChicago, not just from the Harris School. So really being part of a university that has so many strong programs and departments where you can be in the presence of so many interdisciplinary students and insights and everything, and then the way you learn together or also learn from each other was, I think, such a great experience for me that it's really etched in my memory, and it's one of the most distinct memories I have of UChicago.
That's wonderful. So let's turn to your work. As someone who works with UN Women, share more about what you do. What are some of the areas that you're focused on from a research perspective or even from a field perspective?
Sure, happy to do that. So in my case, a lot of my work involves around data analysis. So on a typical day, I would spend a lot of time with census data or with household surveys to draw different kinds of insights on how women and girls are doing across the globe on different facets of sustainable development. So the UN has this 2030 agenda, which has 17 sustainable development goals, which within which there is one goal that is particularly dedicated to gender equality, SDG 5. But we also look at the interlinkages of all of the other SDGs with SDG 5. So that's primarily my work, drawing out insights on how women and girls are doing on the different indicators and targets of the Sustainable Development Goals. I also spend quite a bit of time actually during my typical workday to look at different ways in which I can visualize these data insights so that they can be communicated to a wide range of stakeholders, whether they are governments or policymakers, civil society organizations, academia, students, and so on. We also spend a lot of time on presenting the work that we have done at different forums, conferences, different kinds of committees, so that we have a full value chain that's going on. So we produce the data, we look at different ways in which the data can be curated, but also presented to a diverse set of audiences. And then we complete it with a full dissemination plan where we present all of the insights to everyone, honestly, who's interested in gender equality. So I think that's what my typical day would look like.
Thank you for sharing that. So on the back of that, how are women and girls doing in the last few years based on your research and work?
That's a great question. So I think recently we released a stat that it is going to take about 286 years or nearly 3 centuries to achieve full gender equality across the globe. So I think that itself should tell you how women and girls are doing across the globe when we talk about gender equality. There are many areas in which improvements were being made, that we were seeing concrete improvements before the pandemic. So we were seeing a sustained increase in poverty, for example, in extreme poverty particularly. We were seeing declines in child marriage, in FGM, which is female genital mutilation, and a lot of improvement also in education. But with the pandemic, I'm sorry to say we do not have a lot of good news. What we are seeing is that women and girls, and especially the ones who are from the most impoverished communities, are being left behind. We are seeing that by the end of this year, which is 2022, the year that just passed, about 383 million women and girls will be living in extreme poverty across the globe. And this number seems not to be reducing at all, given the different ways in which the pandemic has hit them. I can go on because I'm really passionate about this subject, but this is just a quick summary of what's happening across the globe with the
Thank you. Since you focus on data analytics, and insights, and looking across the data from the globe, one fair question, perhaps, from the audience is there is UN women, why there isn't UN men? So what are some of the specific challenges that you see or the United Nations see specifically related to women and girls that are clearly demonstrated from data that do not exist in for men or other genders?
Great. Thanks for that question. So first of all, when we talk about UN women, we work not just with women per se, but with women and girls in all their diversity. So again, different genders are covered here. It's gender identity is something quite different from the sex. So we look at women and girls in all their diversity. For your other question, which is quite an interesting one, as I was just saying, what we are seeing is that on the different facets of sustainable development, be it poverty, hunger, health and education, or even sexual and reproductive health and rights, or even, let's say, economic opportunities, and a lot of other things such as availability and access to water and sanitation, and so on and so forth. What we see is that women and girls are particularly being left behind. So when you compare or look at the global data, what we see is that there is clear evidence that more number of girls are affected by in certain facets of sustainable development. So when I mentioned the poverty figures, I said that by the end of 2022, 383 million women and girls were living in extreme poverty. That compares with only about 370 million men and boys. So you see this huge difference in men and women, or including boys and even children, because this is people of all ages. You see a distinct difference between the populations that are living in extreme poverty. So that's one example. What we are also seeing is that there is a significant difference in the rates of hunger, for example. So we are seeing that with the pandemic, with the war in Ukraine, and all of the different catastrophes that we are witnessing with us, especially because of climate change, we are seeing that hunger in general is on the rise. But when you look at the data, you see that women and girls are particularly more affected. So like this, if you go on through the whole list, you will see very, very distinctively that women and girls are much more affected than men and boys in many of these facets. And even when we look at gender inequality, or when we look at women's empowerment, we again see a lot of clear gaps, be it in political participation or women's representation in, let's say, water and sanitation and so on. So that's why we need to bring everyone to an equal footing, for which we really need agencies such as UN Women, but also other UN entities that work towards achieving full gender equality. There are issues also that are specific to men and that specifically should be addressed. But a lot of the agencies, such as United Nations Development Program, work in general with communities that need that kind of help. But the idea of having UN Women is really so we can empower all women and girls across the globe and work towards achieving gender equality, especially by that timeline of 2030, which is really the timeline of achieving all of the sustainable development goals, all the sustainable 17 goals that we have by 2030.
Thank you for the important work that you're doing. Perhaps tell us a bit more about what motivates you in your work. What drives your research? What drives your interests?
Sure. So, as you've already seen by now, the fact that I'm working towards improving the lives of women and girls across the globe and empowering them, that really motivates me. it's really a great feeling when all the data, the insights that you produce and gather, they are directly used by policymakers on the ground to create new policies or to even refine their existing policies. That really helps to keep me going because I feel that I'm making a real contribution to a particular aspect that can change the lives of people. So I think I'm really passionate about the topic of gender equality, and that's what I do for my daily job. So it really keeps me going.
Share a little bit more about how University of Chicago has influenced your way of thinking and the way that you think about research.
Sure. I think what I have really experienced at UChicago is that one really has to think about everything from an evidence-based lens. So that's something that really stuck with me during my time at UChicago. So any topic or any analysis or even everyday things that we do, I think everything should be approached with an evidence-based lens so that we understand or at least try to understand the true impact of a particular development issue or even any other issue in general holistically. So that approach, having that approach, it's really now ingrained in me because I experienced that during my time at UChicago. It helps you to cut out a lot of the anecdotal biases that that allow you to then think a little bit more rationally.
Excellent. And what advice would you give to alumni?
I would say that our alumni network is very, very strong. So I would just say that go for it. Try to reach as much as possible to different alumni who are from your field, but also from other fields that you are interested in. I think that the brand is really strong. The UChicago brand is really strong, and the community has a very strong sense of being part of that UChicago community. So leverage it as much as possible. I think whenever I've reached out to UChicago alumni, I've always went back from them. I've always sort of felt that sense of camaraderie from them. So my experience in terms of reaching out to alumni has been great. So I'm sure it would be the same for everybody else as well. So that would be my number one recommendation.
And what advice would you give to early career professionals or alumni who are looking to work in NGO such as yourself?
Sure. I think the most important thing is to, especially if you want to work at an NGO or at an international development agency, the most important thing is to really try to target the agencies or organizations where your passion lies. So in my case, my passion was really in working towards gender equality. And I think that contributes, that shows up very clearly when you are trying to even prepare your application or go for interviews or do anything else that's needed even during your recruitment process. So I think number one, passion and really thinking about what you want to do, but also starting out quite a bit early and scouting for a different range of opportunities. Internships are a great way to learn what an organization does and also what what really motivates them or what really is the goal that they are working towards, and to see if it aligns with yours. There are also different events that a lot of the NGOs and international organizations organize, such as the CSW, which is the Commission on the Status for Women, if you're interested in gender equality, or different other summits, depending on the topic that you're interested in. So keep yourself fully abreast with the latest developments that are happening. Reach out to different alumni of UChicago because we have so many diverse schools and programs within UChicago. Try to understand what they do and also try to really develop an understanding of the different roles and responsibilities that people have, so you can try to see what's the best fit for you. I believe that when you find the right fit, that automatically gives you a lot of edge when you apply for job application.
Antra, thank you so much for telling us about your story and for leading in your field.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.